The chapter opens with terror etched across Silid's face as Jinwoo calmly states that he does not recall ever giving Rakan permission to leave. Silid was seized by a paralyzing shock, raw, electrifying fear that sliced through the stillness of the battlefield. It felt as though an insurmountable wall stood between his power and Jinwoo's. As he stared at him, Silid finally understood. The difference between them was far too great. Jinwoo paid no attention to the Frost Monarch standing before him. Instead, he slowly closed his eyes and turned inward, drawing upon his power. A sphere-like aura spread from him as his senses expanded outward, sweeping across the battlefield, then across all of South Korea, until it covered the entire Earth. Suddenly, Jinwoo opened his eyes and spoke. There, he had found the Beast Monarch. Silid instinctively sensed an opening. He knew this chance would never come again. The gap in their power was overwhelming, yet he could not believe Jinwoo had taken his eyes off his opponent. If he missed this moment, death would be inevitable. Raising his spear, Silid poured every ounce of his strength into it. A violent blue aura wrapped around the weapon as he resolved to end everything with a single blow. With a roar, he hurled the spear toward Jinwoo with all his might. The spear closed in, but Jinwoo merely looked at it, utterly calm. He raised one hand and caught the spear with his bare palm. Cracks spread instantly through the weapon before it crumpled and shattered. Silid froze in disbelief. How is that possible? In that moment, realization struck him. He finally understood what Jinwoo was capable of. The true power of the Monarch of Shadows, the greatest fragment of brilliant light, the king who stood above all other monarchs. Jinwoo spoke again. I'm going to save you for last. I'll take care of the beast first. Deep within a forest, the fleeing beast monarch hid in silence. Death felt as though it were closing in on him. He cursed himself for arguing with the Frost Monarch. It had delayed his escape. Now, all he could do was lie low until the Dragon King arrived. Then fear overtook him. A familiar aura surged nearby. Before he could react, Jinwoo was already standing beside him. The beast monarch's body refused to move. Terror crushed him. I smelled death in the air. He collapsed to his knees, overwhelmed by the absolute, inescapable difference in their strength. Based on his past experiences, he knew just how horrifying the Shadow Monarch power was. His instincts screamed at him to submit. Bowing deeply, he addressed Jinwoo as the Monarch of Shadows. The King of Beasts declared that he had no wish to fight him. He begged forgiveness for his sins and pleaded to be accepted as an ally. He warned that the Dragon King would soon descend upon the land with his army. When that happened, he promised that his beasts would assist Jinwoo. All right, Jinwoo replied. Rakan smiled faintly as he bowed, but inside, his thoughts were filled with contempt. Jinwoo was a fool. He was not the real one. If he truly were the real Monarch of Shadows, he would never even consider forgiveness. Not after his betrayal, not after he had tried to destroy the vessel of his descendant. Rakan believed he had only been spared due to humanity's warmth and stupidity. All he had to do was wait for the king of berserk dragons to arrive. When the time came, he would gladly tear Jinwoo's corpse to shreds and devour it. Feigning loyalty, Rakan continued to speak, but Jinwoo cut him off. Before that, Jinwoo said, "You need to pay for what you did." He then placed his hand over his chest. 5 of your claws tore through my chest. If you can endure just 5 attacks, I'll forgive you. Rakan froze. Rage erupted from him as a violent aura exploded outward, creating a shockwave accompanied by a deafening roar. How dare you toy with me? I am the King of Beasts. He warned Jinwoo that even if this was his end, Jinwoo would not be safe either. Jinwoo remained calm. A dagger formed in his right hand. Before Rakan could react, Jinwoo vanished, leaving behind dark purple trails. In an instant, he slashed. Rakan's arm was severed. Only after it flew through the air did Rakan realize what had happened. For more, Jinwoo said coldly. The scene shifted back to Silid, whose expression was still frozen in shock. He glanced at Beru, calling him a bastard aligned with the rulers, as Beru healed Hunter Thomas Andre. Suddenly, a slash narrowly missed Silid. Igris stood before him. That one is troublesome as well, Silid muttered. He recognized him, one of the 2 wings of the Shadow Army, the Soldier of Death. It seems he can now use his full power, Silid noted. How inconvenient. Still, he reasoned that the shadows could be healed only until the Shadow Monarch's power ran out. but they cannot recover the magic consumed by his manifestation. Igris slashed again. Silid evaded with a leap and sneered. Don't waste your efforts. How long do you think you can last against me? Suddenly, Igris stopped and stabbed his sword into the ground. From beneath Igris' robe, Jinwoo emerged, tossing two fangs onto the ground. The king of beasts is dead, Jinwoo said. Silid was stunned. Killed in mere minutes? Jinwoo declared that the monarch of plagues, the king of beasts, and even the frost monarch standing before him would die, stating that their fall would serve as a warning to the rest. Furious, Silid screamed and unleashed a storm of ice spikes. But two daggers suddenly pierced his chest. Still resisting, Silid tried to generate ice magic from his mouth, only for Jinwoo to appear instantly before him and clamp a purple aura-covered hand over his face. With his other hand, Jinwoo slashed upward. The king of beasts died on the fourth strike, Jinwoo said. How long will you last? Silid screamed as the ice encasing him cracked and shattered. His true form was revealed before his body began to disintegrate, vanishing into thin air. Above, the sky still glowed with an eerie purple light. Beru called out to Jinwoo, but Jinwoo was focused on something else. He searched for the one who had protected him earlier. That presence had disappeared. Jinwoo noticed the dagger left behind. Elsewhere, blood streaked the wall of a ruined building. The man who had saved Jinwoo leaned against it, barely breathing as his body slowly crumbled. So this was the price of becoming a vessel for a ruler. It's over, this is it, he thought. Suddenly, a dagger struck the ground near his foot. He looked up in shock. Jinwoo stood there. Did you really think I wouldn't notice you leaving like that? Jinwoo asked. Were you planning to disappear again without a word? The chapter ends as Jinwoo looks at the man and calls him calmly. Father, before we wrap up this arc, if you enjoyed the video, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Thank you. The chapter begins with the backstory of Jinwoo's father. Inside a gate, an enormous rift that had torn open reality and unleashed demonic beasts, he had fought his way through countless enemies. After finally defeating the dungeon boss, the rule was clear: escape the gate within 1 hour. But he could not. With all paths of escape sealed, he became trapped within the dimensional rift. While imprisoned there, the rulers lent him their strength and made a request. He was to stop the Monarchs, especially the Shadow Monarch, who was soon to be born. Having lost all means of escape, he had no choice but to accept. He returned to Earth as the emissary of the rulers, bearing an unbearable responsibility. Yet, in the end, he could not fulfill that duty. Although he knew that the worst calamity facing humanity resided within Jinwoo's body, he was powerless to act. All he could do was watch from afar. Meanwhile, the rulers, whose sole objective had once been to prevent the complete advent of the Shadow Monarch, began to change their stance. Eventually, the brightest fragment of brilliant light issued a new order: protect the Shadow Monarch. They had realized that to stop the Monarch's plan of total destruction, they needed the Shadow Monarch's power. Only he could oppose the coming army of the Dragon King, whose soldiers would arrive before the armies of heaven. It was a tremendous gamble. No one knew whether the Shadow Monarch would side with humanity or the Monarchs. But now, the result was clear. That was the reason Jinwoo's father had helped him, though he never wanted that truth to be revealed. Only one word left Jinwoo's lips. As tears streamed down his face, he whispered, "Dad." His father hesitated before asking softly whether Jinwoo hated him. Jinwoo answered honestly, "Yes, sometimes." His father apologized. Jinwoo explained that when he first became a hunter, he had been on the brink of death countless times. Each time he barely survived, desperate just to see his mother and Jin-Woo again. His father's face would appear in his mind, and every time it happened, he hated him. Hearing this, sorrow filled his father's expression. But Jinwoo's next words shocked him. "Even so, I missed you," Jinwoo asked quietly. "What about you?" His father could not answer right away. He could only stare at Jinwoo, still stunned. Jinwoo asked again, his voice trembling, "Did you miss us?" Tears finally fell from his father's eyes as he nodded. "I missed you all the time. Even though I couldn't see you, I was happy just being able to watch you from afar." As he spoke, his body began to crack and slowly fade. Still, he forced himself forward and wrapped Jinwoo in an embrace. "You've grown well," he said. Jinwoo's tears continued to fall, mixing with the heavy rain pouring down around them. Then anger surged through Jinwoo. He clenched his fists and demanded to know whether the rulers had controlled his father, whether they had simply used him and thrown him away. Tears remained in his father's eyes, but he smiled gently. They didn't control me. They only gave me a chance to choose. And he had chosen to protect Jinwoo. He had no regrets. Not a single one. He admitted that he wanted to talk longer, that he wanted to stay with him just a little more. In his final moments, he said, "I'm sorry that I couldn't be a great father to you." His body vanished completely within Jinwoo's hands, leaving only golden ashes drifting into the air. Jinwoo clenched his fists. Then, a powerful cry echoed across the land. The Shadow Monarch scream shook the world. Elsewhere, Jinwoo's mother stood by a window with Jin-Ah, staring into the rain. Tears filled her eyes as she suddenly called out to her daughter. "Let's move now." She felt it. They could finally move forward. Standing alone in the rain, Jinwoo looked up at the sky and roared, "Listen up, Monarchs. You will pay for what happened today. Do you hear me?" The day the Shadow Monarch's outcry shook the world was the day the prelude to war began. Afterward, the aftermath of the battle was revealed. Hunter Thomas Andre was reported to be out of life-threatening danger. Ambulances filled the streets, transporting the injured to hospitals. The monsters that had massacred civilians were no longer moving. Only traces of ash remained where they once stood. Jinwoo returned home, holding his mother and Jin-Ah tightly. At the battlefield, hunters Choi Jong-in and Baek Yoon-ho spoke quietly. Jong-in noted that Yoon-ho had not looked well earlier and asked if he had calmed down. Yoon-ho replied that he needed to wipe the cold sweat from his forehead before talking. Jong-in jokingly offered him a mind-calming pill, asking whether his heart had stopped racing. Nearby, Chairman Woo Jin-shul surveyed the devastation. "I guess it's over now," he murmured. He recalled Jinwoo's enemies, a beast-type demonic creature, the woman who attacked the city, and the White Walker. He remembered Jinwoo's words at Chairman Go's funeral, that he would personally kill the demonic beast responsible. Only now did Jin-shul realize the White Walker had been the one Jinwoo was referring to. Lowering his head, tears fell as he whispered, "Thank you." Soon after, the Hunter Bureau announced that the monsters responsible for the destruction were unidentifiable demonic beasts. The damage to the city was catastrophic. However, the true calamity was yet to come. The massive purple gate enveloping the entirety of Seoul. Beneath it stood countless hunters from all over the world, waiting. Among them was Liu Jigang, China's national-level hunter. Smiling as he looked up, he remarked, "So this is the colossal gate. It's even bigger than I heard." He added that even if every hunter in the world gathered, they could all be swallowed by it and vanish. Thomas Andre, also present, muttered, "It'll start soon." Chairman Jin-shul realized that this was the first time so many hunters had assembled in one place. His expression hardened as he wondered how many of them would survive. At the very front stood Jinwoo, his gaze fixed upward, his expression grim. Hunter Cha Hae-in approached him and commented that she had never seen him look this nervous before. Jinwoo replied calmly, "Is that so?" But in his mind, he knew the colossal gate would open soon. Cracks began spreading across the gate as everyone held their breath. "It's coming. Everyone, prepare for battle." Black figures began emerging. "It's a huge army, a massive force. Get into position. We'll exterminate the demonic beasts." But Jinwoo froze. Staring at what emerged, he whispered in shock, "That's..." The figures pouring out of the gate looked exactly like his shadow army. Shadow soldiers, shadow dragons, and finally, a colossal shadow soldier emerged. A towering, black-armored figure crackling with purple energy. Jagged plates formed a void-black exoskeleton. Massive wings flared from its back, and a rune-etched blade hummed with lavender light. Purple lightning surged around its overwhelming presence. This marks the end of the Monarchs' war and sets the stage for the most awaited arc, the final war arc, where Sung Jinwoo fully awakens as the Shadow Monarch and faces his ultimate enemy, Antares, the King of Dragons and the strongest monarch. In a world-ending clash of shadow and destruction, only one will remain to decide the fate of all.